Welcome to the Common Man Football Show. My name is James Coburn, and today's episode, we're doing another fantasy football musings on the Miami Dolphins backfield / offensive line. So in this video, we're going to go over what the Dolphins offensive line looks like from an athleticism standpoint, and then we're going to get into the backfield to see which running back should you possibly be targeting when it comes to fantasy football. I'm not going to get too much into how you rank these players and anything else like that. It's purely to go, if you want to make a play on the Dolphins backfield, it's just giving a general overview of the running backs that are in question. So we're going to go through every single running back in terms of their production profile coming out of college, and get into a little bit of NFL data as well, at least in terms of the big free agent acquisition that the Dolphins made. And if you're new to the channel, new to the work that I do, all terms and definitions will be in the description. So first off, with the offensive line of the Miami Dolphins, and we're going to go starter by starter to go as quickly as possible. But first off, of course, you have Laremy Tunsil, offensive tackle from Ole Miss when he came out. He had an 80.29 explosive lower body strength score and a 65.03 speed score. As you can clearly see, there's no flexibility testing for him. So that was something that just was lacking in terms of his pre-draft profile. But he does have good explosiveness. He does have at least Pro Bowl level speed. Not exactly an all-pro level athlete. And when you get to the averages at the position, he looks closer to a starter than he does a all-pro / Pro Bowl player. But the bottom line is, or the bottom line in terms of this exercise, we're just trying to make sure that they have starter level athletes at the position, and at least in this case, Tunsil definitely has that ability. So this isn't really about if the player is high quality or not. It's mostly just to trying to determine, does this guy have prerequisite NFL athleticism? Is he going to be able to deal with the majority of defensive linemen that he's going to face on a weekly basis? And at least in Tunsil's case, he does have athleticism traits necessary to at least get the job done from a certain extent. Then, of course, we get to Josh Sitton. In terms of his profile, 82.45 in terms of explosiveness, 81 in terms of speed, and 96.50 in terms of flexibility for his size. Very great athlete coming out of college. He's definitely a little bit longer in the tooth now. He's older, so there definitely is some, age concerns, but he was definitely a great athlete coming out. Pretty much had all pro to Pro Bowl level athleticism when you look at the averages, and has had a very good career so far. So Josh Sitton is definitely a good sort of addition here as well. Then of course you get to the center, Daniel Kilgore. When you look at his athleticism, 92.02 in terms of explosiveness, 58.65 in terms of speed, and 80.69 in terms of flexibility for his size. Doesn't exactly look like an all-pro player, but definitely has Pro Bowl level athleticism traits when you look at the bottom end thresholds. And when you look at the averages of the position, looks a little bit closer to a Pro Bowl to starter than an all-pro player, but still pretty strong athleticism profile for Kilgore. Then of course you get to Jesse Davis, 76.20 in terms of explosiveness, 41.60 in terms of speed, and 69.31 in terms of flexibility. Definitely more so looks like a starter than an all-pro / Pro Bowl player, but still good quality athleticism traits. The only major question mark is speed, which speed at offensive line really just deals with the type of scheme that you're running. If you're running a power scheme, typically you want faster offensive linemen, to be able to get out in space and get, hat on a hat, get to the second level. Jesse Davis looks more like a ZBS type guard in terms of his athleticism traits. And then the last player to mention, of course, is Juwan James, 56.97 in terms of explosiveness, 48.39 in terms of speed, and 86.92 in terms of flexibility. Doesn't exactly have the speed of an all-pro player, but definitely has the speed of a Pro Bowl player. When you look at the averages at the position, mainly lacks explosiveness and speed, but still very good balanced traits. In many ways, Juwan James is kind of similar to like Anthony Costanzo, who is the tackle for the Colts, or various other types of guys like this. He's more so a guy that has good balance, good ability to keep his feet, but not exactly very explosive and not exactly very fast. So there are some limitations in terms of certain players that he faces. Bottom line is, when you look at the Miami Dolphins offensive line, it's not incredible. It's not the most athletic offensive line in the NFL by any stretch of the imagination, but it is at least serviceable. None of the players that I mentioned didn't meet prerequisite athleticism traits. None of the players that I mentioned have noticeable, glaring red flags in terms of their athleticism. And because of that, this is definitely a backfield that can function, which is what you want. Which brings us to the running backs in the mix. Probably the most important part of this entire video is the running back group. And of course, the Miami Dolphins went out and got Frank Gore. Frank Gore, coming out of college, he had a 70.34 market share production score, pretty much hit the 5-time Pro Bowl area in terms of the bottom end thresholds. In terms of the averages of the position, he was pretty close to the Pro Bowl average and starter average, and of course went on to become a starter that way. Athleticism coming out, and of course this athleticism is with him coming off of recovery from an injury from Miami, but he did hit at least 179 or higher athleticism trait, which when it comes to the running back position, pretty much 100% of multiple All-Pro / Pro Bowl running backs since 1999 had at least 179 or higher athleticism trait. At least in Frank Gore's case, he had one in flexibility testing. His overall traits, as you can see, 32.93 in terms of explosiveness, 46.72 in terms of speed, and 81.46 in terms of flexibility. And when he gets to his actual NFL production, pretty amazing career. He's a guy that has put in exceptional, 90+ percentile seasons throughout most of his career in terms of total offensive market share, which is what OMS stands for. So he's been a very good, he's been a very good contributor. The problem with Frank Gore, though, and this is the big sort of question mark of Frank Gore, is his age. He's going to turn, 35 years old. And when you look at the number of above average running back performances based on age, and this is every single running back performance since 1969, you can clearly see that 35 to 36 to 37, there's only been 4 above average running back performances with running backs over the age of 34 since 1969. Only 3 at age 36 and only 1 at age 37. Frank Gore is pretty much in the end game, guys. So as much as Frank Gore has had an amazing career, and he's definitely been a guy that has put in great accomplishments throughout his season, he's been that reliable guy that's just stuck it out through thick and thin. I still think age is definitely a factor you have to consider when it comes to Frank Gore, because when you're talking about a running back that's entering his 30, entering the NFL, or at least entering a season where he's going to be 35 years old, well, there's only been 4 above average performances since 1969, it makes you wonder. And it makes you wonder this: is there anybody behind Frank Gore that can challenge Frank Gore, or at the very least take the mantle if Frank Gore gets injured, or if Frank Gore gets put on the shelf for whatever reason, due to age or whatever factor? And the answer with the Dolphins backfield right now, at least with the personnel they have, is kinda. So let's get to the guys that are behind Frank Gore. And there's a lot of question marks with this group, but we're going to get through it. So first off, the backup to him is Kenyon Drake. Kenyon Drake is a guy that I know a lot of people have been, excited about for whatever reason. He's Alabama back, so people just love Alabama backs. But based on his production, it wasn't that fantastic. Only had a 20.69 market share production score. Did not hit the All-Pro threshold, 5-time Pro Bowl threshold, or 3-time Pro Bowl threshold at the position. When you look at his averages at the position, of course, doesn't really hit anywhere near the average Pro Bowl score, average starter score. And when you look at his athleticism traits, only 43.51 in terms of explosiveness, 68.34 in terms of speed, and 59.09 in terms of flexibility for his size. Again, 100% of multiple All-Pro / Pro Bowl running backs had at least 179 or higher trait, and Kenyon Drake has no 79 or higher athleticism trait for his size. So that takes him out of the running of high-quality outcomes. His production, on top of that, just makes things look bad. Now, does this mean that he has no chance to be a contributor or a committee back? Absolutely not. I think based on his athleticism traits, he's definitely athletic enough to be a rotational running back, and I think he's going to continue to be that. But is this a guy that's going to end up being a workhorse back that's going to get all the carries and all that? Like, I really doubt that, based on the database and his production, based on his athleticism traits. But the one back in particular that I'm going to make the best case for to break out and become at least a very heavy contributor is the rookie that the Dolphins drafted this year in Kalen Ballage. Now, Ballage does not have great production coming out, which is the only major knock on him. Only 48.31 in terms of his market share production score. It doesn't really hit near the averages at the position. In terms of bottom end thresholds, doesn't really hit the 3-time Pro Bowl threshold, 5-time Pro Bowl threshold, or All-Pro threshold. But the one thing Kalen Ballage does have is great athleticism traits, 71.30 in terms of explosiveness, 91.03 in terms of speed, and 85 in terms of flexibility for his size. Fantastic overall athleticism traits. And he shares a shocking similarity to another running back that the Dolphins have had in Ronnie Brown. Ronnie Brown, almost identical market share production coming out. Similar sort of situation, where he wasn't great in terms of, was kind of below average in terms of his production, but did have great athleticism traits, 75.46 in terms of explosiveness, 96.93 in terms of speed, and 91.72 in terms of flexibility for his size. And he was able to take that athleticism and turn in some pretty decent production years. Now, he only had one 90-plus percentile market share year in terms of total offensive market share in 2006. But the point is, who's going to end up being a major contributor in this Dolphins offense? And even though Kalen Ballage will most likely not become a 3-time Pro Bowl running back, it's very unlikely he becomes that. He definitely shares some of the similar sort of qualities that a Ronnie Brown has, to where he's a great athlete, and you just put him behind a relatively decent offensive line, and then you're able to get production out of him. So if there was one running back in this backfield of the Miami Dolphins that has the best chance to emerge as the starting back, if you will, and put in some decent production, it would be Kalen Ballage. Frank Gore is getting way up there in age. Frank Gore is, if he doesn't end up being out of the NFL after this year, it's definitely coming next year or the year after that. I mean, it's coming. Like you can't run away from age when it comes to the running back position. So, and I think when it comes to Ballage, you also have to look at the other running backs behind him, which don't have great situations either. Sonoris Perry, bad production, 26.91 in terms of his market share production. When you look at his athleticism traits, he does have at least a 79 speed score, but the production is worse than Kalen Ballage in many ways. So you kind of take him out of the running just because of that. You look at Brandon Ratcliffe, bad production as well, 18.88. You look at his athleticism traits, very bad as well. Only 59.25 in terms of explosiveness, 53.72 in terms of speed, and 7.34 in terms of flexibility for his size. Simply does not have a 79 or higher athleticism trait. And then lastly, you get Greg Howell. Production-wise, only 32.38 out of 100. And when you look at his athleticism traits, not that fantastic either. Only 13.02 in terms of explosiveness, 62.12 in terms of speed, and 9.32 in terms of flexibility for his size. So the bottom line is, when it comes to the Miami Dolphins backfield, should you make a play on this backfield? It's really hard to say because the offensive line is not amazing. It's definitely serviceable. You do have Frank Gore, who could turn in Frank Gore most likely, based on all the players that I went through, very likely that he ends up putting in an above average season this year. But at the same time, age is something that you do have to factor in, that this could be the year that he falls off because of how old he is. Like, there's just, again, only 4 above average performances at age 35 out of every running back since 1969. That is really significant. The guys behind him are not that great. Kenyon Drake is a fan favorite to a certain extent, but not as athletic as you want him to be, and production-wise, not that great. And Kalen Ballage is more productive than Kenyon Drake and much more athletic than him. So if I'm going to make a move on the Dolphins backfield, if I am in any type of fantasy league, if I'm trying to take a late flyer even, like if I'm in the late rounds and I'm trying to take a flyer on a player who could emerge and put in significant production, production enough to be a top 20 running back, if you will, or top, maybe not top 10, but definitely top 20 range. It's Kalen Ballage. That is who you should be investing in to a certain extent. So You know, this is a backfield that definitely could use a running back next year. If a running back emerges and they draft a running back, I think that guy could take the reins and be the guy because of Kalen Ballard's issues. But because of the situation that we're in right now, I mean, this reminds me so much of the Broncos situation when they had Ronnie Hillman and Monty Ball and C.J. Anderson. And I looked at that backfield and I saw Monty Ball, who just was not that athletic from an athleticism standpoint. Didn't have a 79 or higher athleticism trait. You had Ronnie Hillman, who was definitely very productive, but just didn't have great athleticism. And then you had C.J. Anderson, who was this guy that had almost a 90-plus percentile athleticism trait across the board type guy. Didn't have the greatest production, but definitely was a great athlete. And I look at that situation and I go, that's what this situation is. It's that Kalen Ballard in many ways is kind of like a C.J. Anderson type, where even though he's not the most productive, even though it is going to be a little shaky and rocky at first, I do think that once things get going, once the train starts going, he'll definitely take everybody for the ride and end up being the starter here. So that's my general thoughts on the Miami Dolphins backfield. And let me know in the comment section below, who do you believe is going to emerge in the Miami Dolphins backfield? Do you think that Frank Gore is going to turn in another reasonably decent season at age 35? Do you think that Kalen Ballard is going to emerge? Or do you think that this is just a situation where it's just going to be a running back, like three-headed monster-like thing that happens, and it'll be another year or so before they actually get the real running back to come in? Of course, my name is James Coburn. You can find my other work at draftcoburn.wordpress.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at JimMetrics. And if you like this content and you want more content like this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Share this video as well with anybody that you know. Hit that notification button so you're always reminded when another video of mine drops. And I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Peace.